There's a lot you can learn about the majors UC Berkeley has to offer from looking online on various websites. But in this video, we wanted to share students' own perspectives on what it was like to go through these majors, taking their classes, handling the stresses of academics, finding research and internships, and other things that are part of the major experience at Cal. Here is an edited interview of students and former students and the personal experiences and stories they shared. Hi, thank you guys for joining today. And thank you for being willing to just share your own personal insights and experiences in regards to your major. If you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Vincent. I study data science. I'm a third year at Berkeley right now.
I'm Julia. I graduated from Berkeley. I studied computer science and graduated class of 2018. So I've been working out of college for about a year and a half now.
Hi guys. Like I said, my name is Duncan, and I graduated from Cal 2019 as EECS.
All right, yeah, let's get right into it. So my first question is, what was your experience like declaring your major, and what was it like taking some of the lower division classes? Did you have any experience, with deciding between majors or adding majors?
I came in as EECS, like I said, and so for me, I did not have a lot of pressure to declare because EECS, you basically come in declared already. 61A, dang, it's kind of like tough if you don't have a programming background, but there's a lot of resources to help and support you. And that's the good thing about Cal. So that was the kind of situation I was in because I had maybe like 6 months of programming experience before Cal. And eventually it ended up being okay just because there's a lot of support from the staff. 61B is usually easier for most people just because there's a lot more freedom in terms of like what you're doing in the class, like what you're building code-wise. So 61A is fundamental concepts of programming, and the 61B is data structures and algorithms. You learn things that are very useful in the industry, and most people say it's much more fun than 61A, and I agree. And then the CS70, which is the last of the three, and that's a lot of math. So it's discrete mathematics and probability. That is on the harder side, but then again, there's a lot of resources around the class to help you do well. So a lot of people do end up getting the minimum GPA cutoff and declaring.
Yeah, so I came into Berkeley not really knowing what I wanted to study, and I knew that I wanted to use college as a time to kind of explore and figure that out. And that's actually the reason why I chose Berkeley, because it has a lot of strong departments across the board. So the flexibility and being able to switch to something drastically different was what I was looking forward to when I came to Berkeley. In my application, I actually applied as MCB because I had done a lot of bio in high school, but I knew I was interested in exploring other subjects as well. And I'd grown up taking art lessons, and it's always been a side interest of mine, so I also wanted to minor in art. My first semester at Cal, I ended up taking a whole bunch of classes, kind of a mix. So I took Chem 1A, 61A, and freshman seminar and an art studio. And I ended up majoring in CS because I just found the classes and the problem solving aspect of it to be really interesting, a lot more interesting than bio actually. I found CS to be a lot more interesting than biology, which felt like a lot of memorization to me. I ended up deciding to major in CS and also took a lot of art studio classes, so it actually made sense for me to just tack on a second major.
When deciding on your major, did you have any expectations or any fears or doubts about it?
So I came into Berkeley as a stats major, actually. I didn't really like physics or calculus coming in, so definitely no to engineering. But I was pretty good at math and STEM, I guess. So I turned to statistics because I really liked the idea of just analyzing raw information and turning it into something really useful, inference or interpretation of these confusing numbers, and then turning that into English was something that I thought was really interesting. And before college, I took, a CS class before, but I just thought the prospect of being like a computer scientist was like kind of boring or dry, sitting behind a computer all day. But freshman and spring semester, I took CS 61A, and I really enjoyed it. It's a really good class. Data science happened to be coming out in the fall of my sophomore year. So I felt, okay, yeah, data science is like a really nice compromise between CS and stats. But I didn't really settle in to this idea until I took Data 100. So I think Data 100 is like a really good benchmark for if you're interested in pursuing data science, because it has a lot of the fundamentals that you would use in industry.
I had a lot of fears and doubts. I had no experience in CS before college, and I was pretty intimidated, actually, because a lot of students come in freshman year having taken APCS or having built a lot of their own CS side projects, and I felt really insecure, like, about my own abilities because I didn't have the same amount of experience. I considered like taking the easier courses or the introductory courses, like CS10, but I heard that they weren't like quite representative of what CS classes were actually like, so I just decided to jump into 61A. And I found the class really challenging and pretty fast-paced, and definitely the learning curve was really steep, but I have to say that the CS TAs and faculty are really passionate about democratizing CS education, and there were a lot of people who are happy to help. For me, I went to a lot of discussions and office hours and spent a lot of time asking my friends dumb questions, and yeah, I found that it's just really important to find people to work with on projects, and friends who are good at CS and willing to teach you concepts.
During college, did you have trouble balancing your workload? Considering the workload of classes, what projects are like, number of technicals to take, and what was your experience of rectifying that issue?
I kind of started off like very intimidated by Cal, and so my freshman year, I would take like basically the least feasible number of classes. I wouldn't try to like burden myself too much. But then after getting through 61A and 61B, I was kind of like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I got this. Sophomore year fall, I took 4 technicals that semester. And that was a big mistake. Basically what it felt like was just like I was jumping from one homework to the next lab to the next homework to the next lab. And I never had enough time to like sit down and savor the material and understand what I was learning. It was always just like, I need to submit this, I need to submit this. I'm not saying that don't take 4 texts. By all means, if I guess if you think you're capable of handling that, just go ahead and do it. But yeah, you think about it before you make that decision. You have to really consider how it will affect your all the other aspects of your life. Junior was actually my best year in college, both academically and just social life and just balancing everything together. Because I'd kind of like learned how best I learn, what my limits are in terms of classes, in terms of material, and like my learning rhythms. And so for junior, I ended up taking 4 texts in total, 2 texts in the fall, 2 texts in the spring, and then some non-technical classes in between. And that was like an ideal course load for me. And I think for most people, that ends up being ideal. If you don't overburden yourself, you end up enjoying the classes more. You end up appreciating the material more and being able to even learn things outside of your classes.
I'd say that most data science and CS students take about 2 technicals a semester, but it does vary from person to person. As a starting point, I'd suggest 2 technicals a semester and then, adjusting accordingly. Just like a final note is like that I would like to remind you guys that school isn't everything. So don't try to pour too much into school. I had made that mistake before of like taking too many classes, and then like social life is like kind of rough, and like you kind of just find yourself doing school all the time. So definitely take the time to be able to balance that in order to have like a more full college experience.
What was the process of finding an internship like during college, if you had one? And if you did, what was the experience like?
I was lucky enough to get an internship at Twitter in SF. And so for that one, I had to do like so many interviews before I could get that sophomore year internship. You might have to take more interviews than you expect just to get one. So like be ready for that. So the thing with internships in general is that you got to be proactive in terms of just looking for these opportunities. One helpful tip is just like look at the calendar at the beginning of the semester if you want to get an internship, and know where the career fairs are in the semester. Prepare for that in advance, have that in your calendar, know that when you should be ready for them. There's always these emails of like companies coming to campus, like Apple, Google. So take advantage of those opportunities. You want to go there and attend those info sessions, hear what they say, chat with a few engineers, and then maybe you might get an internship or an interview through that. My first internship I got through a friend who had applied to a program at Twitter. And then he just told me, hey, you should check this out, you should apply to it. That was in the fall sophomore year. I applied and then I didn't hear back for about 2 months. I was still applying to other places at the time. And then the following year in the spring, they got back to me, and then we did like 2 rounds of interviews, and then they took me on site, and then I got the offer afterwards. You want to apply to as many places as possible. So then, yeah, don't start filtering, being like, oh, I don't like this company, or this company is kind of small, or basically don't filter out companies before you apply to them. Just apply to a bunch of places. And then whoever responds, you'll filter out based on that. Practice doing interviews. I've had a lot of horrible interviews. Yeah, practice doing interviews. Grab a friend or like someone you're comfortable being sounding dumb in front of, and then just practice interviews.
How did you get involved with extracurriculars related to your major if you did those during college? Things like clubs, consulting, research. And if you're involved with those, how was the experience?
As I explored CS, I became really interested in the intersection between CS and more creative fields. I mentioned before that I double majored in art, so I think that had a big impact. So I started to get interested in things like front end and how to use the aesthetics and what I knew from art to build websites. I ended up taking some decals like the web design decal, which was a huge help to learning the basics of front end. And I also took InOD's decal on Photoshop and Illustrator, which ended up catalyzing my interest in design. As I got involved in the design community at Cal, I learned about UI UX, and that seems like a really natural intersection between visual design and the more technical CS world. So I joined some design consulting club called Berkeley Innovation, which allowed me to get a lot of hands-on experience with the design process. And we worked with real-world clients to deliver designs. And it ended up using a lot of these projects in my own portfolio and in my application for full-time jobs as well. It was really through actually a lot of student-driven initiatives like clubs and decals that I got to the experience that I needed to get a job in a field, even though it's not totally related to CS.
At Berkeley, the first step is always going to be you have to apply to whatever position or whatever club that you want to get into. Even some of the volunteering-based ones have applications, so that might be kind of intimidating, but I think it's a good thing to practice anyways. So think of it positively. How much you get out of or how much you're involved in your extracurricular is usually a function of how you personally are motivated to put time into both the people and the relationships you have in the club, as well as the work that you're doing in the club. For example, I'm currently working with the Division of Data Science, and sometimes there's opportunities to step up to work on some particular project or consultation or pitch some new ideas to work on. And it's up to you to be able to step up and really take that into your own hands. And it does vary. For one club you might not be as motivated and you might just be happy where you are. For another club it might be something you're really interested in. For me it's teaching, so I stepped up and decided to help teach a workshop or something like that. The key is to find something that you really enjoy pouring into. And whether that be research, academia, just helping out with internal operations for a club, definitely go for it. And I hope that'll make the best experience for you. Also, on the flip side, it can be really tempting to force yourself to fit into whatever mold that these people around you kind of paint. But so I'd say definitely put yourself out there, but also make sure that the things that you're pursuing are things that you think are really valuable for your own growth.
What has been your own personal experience with your major and the culture or community within it? Culture in terms of, students, professor, or department interaction. And do you have any experiences or stories that you could share about that?
The CS community of Berkeley is known to be very collaborative and supportive. The fact that most CS classes, especially the low division classes, are not curved. So basically your friend doing better than you does not in any way hinder your chances of doing well. So there's that spirit of let's work together, let's try and do well in this class together. If you're in lab or you're working on a project, there's always someone who's willing to help you out, help you debug. If you approach a TA, if you approach an older student who's maybe taking the class, freshman year spring when I took 61B. 61B is very project heavy. In the middle of the semester, they have this one massive project where you build something really complicated from scratch. My year, we built a bare bones version of Notepad, which is just a text editor. I spent a lot of my time while I was doing that project in Soda, just with other students, till late in the night. It was tough, but it was a fun time though. We would be there the whole day, trying to make something work. And then when it wouldn't work, we'd laugh at each other's bugs, oh, your program does this, or it's not supposed to do that. But then once you get even a small part done, there's a sense of celebration and common you've common achievement. You've all done something together. So there's there's definitely a very collaborative atmosphere within the CS department. I have one story of professor interaction. So John De Niro, some of you might already know him. He's the guy who teaches 61A, the intro class for CS. Towards the end of the semester, one of my friends was like, "Yo, we should like ask De Niro to go out for lunch with us." And I was like, are you serious? He's not gonna say yes. Come on." And so after the lecture, we like go up to him. We're like, "Yeah, we're very grateful for like you teaching us the entire semester. Would you like to grab lunch with us?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. Tell me when and where." And I was like, "Whoa!" A week later, after the lecture, De Niro, my friend, and I went to the photo dining commons, and I swiped him in. I used my points to swipe De Niro in. I'll never forget that. And so we ended up like grabbing a table and sitting with De Niro, and we just talked for like an hour or so about like CS, about life, about his time at Stanford, about teaching, and just a bunch of things. Professors want to hang out with you. I guess I don't know if you can say that about many places. So yeah, definitely like just talk to them. They want to hang out if they have time. So yeah, you can do that if you want to.
Thank you guys for sharing your own personal insights, stories, and experiences in regards to these questions about your majors. I just hope that for those watching that this was at least a little helpful, being able to hear from students and former students about what was it like to do their majors during college. So yeah, I just want to wish everyone the best of luck. So thank you.